What's happening inside the Republican Party right now will determine America's fate for the next century. Behind closed doors, a vicious battle rages between Trump's revolutionary forces and the establishment fossils desperately clinging to power. The old guard thought they could wait him out, thought they could sabotage from within, thought they could return to business as usual. Well, they were dead wrong. What Trump's team is engineering is not just a political victory, it's the complete transformation of American conservatism. And the evidence is undeniable, the momentum unstoppable, and the establishment's panic is reaching hysteria. So buckle up for the inside story. As Trump reshapes the Republican Party, restores American strength, it's time to restore your own vitality. By age 40, collagen production drops significantly, leading to visible aging, joint pain, and weakened hair and nails. Ageless Multi-Collagen provides 5 types of collagen from 4 premium sources, no clumping, no taste, just smooth results. While Trump rebuilds our nation's foundation, rebuild yours with clean, powerful collagen support. No GMOs, no artificial ingredients, just real results. Plus, every order helps feed hungry children through nokidhungry.org. Get 51% off, free shipping, and lifetime coaching at healthwithgary.com. Your body will thank you. Now, Stephen Miller, he just sat down with Laura Trump to reveal the 10-year master plan behind Trump's political revolution. Watch now, as Trump's closest advisor explains how they built the MAGA movement from nothing to become the most powerful political force on earth, completely destroying establishment Republican orthodoxy. Watch.
We're almost halfway through 2025. You've been around for a long time. You've been around President Trump for a long time. Give me your take on the state of things within the Trump administration 2.0, as I call it, and what are the top priorities heading into the summer?
Well, first of all, it's wonderful to be here with you. I've been around for 10 years now. Sometimes it feels like it's only been a year. I mean, just in terms of how quickly time has moved as we've gone through as a nation. This incredible revolution of common sense, as the president calls it, and the birth of the MAGA movement all the way to the height of not just American politics, but world politics, right? The MAGA movement, the Trump movement, sits on top of geopolitics for the entire world as the most successful, influential political movement, changing the entire planet in terms of peace, security, prosperity. What I think about the most as I look back on this short period of time is how the president spent the last 4 years planning and preparing and getting ready for this moment so that when he took that oath of office on January 20th, he knew exactly what he wanted to do from the moment he stepped into that Oval Office. He knew what bill he wanted to pass through Congress. He knew what he wanted to do on the border. He knew what he wanted to do on trade. He knew what he wanted to do on foreign policy, on military policy, on reforming the bureaucracy, and on fighting and draining the swamp. So we've seen more action and more activity in the last 4 months than any new administration has ever put into effect.
You gotta love it, right? 10 years of planning for this exact moment. Trump knew precisely what he wanted to accomplish from day one back in office. And Miller pulls no punches, describing how Trump obliterated the failed Republican establishment. Every other 2016 candidate was just another version of the same tired status quo. Watch him explain how Trump gave Americans their first real choice in decades. Watch.
Let me ask you about President Trump, because as you say, you've been around for 10 years. You've seen him through a lot. What has changed about President Trump and what hasn't changed about President Trump and the way he operates in the White House?
So President Trump, I've been so blessed, so fortunate to be able to watch him as a leader up front, close and personal for 10 years. As again, he built the MAGA movement from nothing, from scratch. You know, in 2016, when he first ran, I think, I don't want to insult anybody, but I think pretty much every other Republican in that race was some version of an establishment Republican. That's all the Republican Party had to offer, was establishment Republicanism, status quo. President Trump blew up that whole entire failed system, and for the first time in our lifetimes, gave the American people a different choice, something other than the status quo, something other than, and I know it's a harsh word to use, but we were on a glide path to national suicide. Between open borders, between uncontrolled bureaucracy, between our total surrender on trade and economic policy, the throttling of American energy, the destruction of our culture, our education system, and the destruction of the rule of law.
The destruction of our country through open borders, uncontrolled bureaucracy, and cultural destruction. That's what establishment Republicans were offering before Trump arrived. But the most devastating revelation came from CNN's own data analyst, Henry Enten. For decades, Democrats owned the title of Party of the Middle Class by double digits. Now, that advantage is completely gone. Watch Enten's shock as he reveals Republicans have erased a 23-point deficit. Watch.
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. Plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
This is new CNN polling.
Yes.
How is that, when we look for trends, how is that trending with other data that you're pulling in?
Yeah, if it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, and that is the reason why, even if Donald Trump's approval ratings are a little bit lower than they used to be, Republicans are not out of the ballgame because they still have a clear advantage on the economy, whether you look at CNN's polls or whether you look at the Ipsos poll right here, in which they have a 12-point advantage on the economy, Kate.
And also in the CNN data, it does show that Republicans are gaining ground in an area that is key relating to all of this, which is when it comes to the middle class.
Yeah. You know, historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989 when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022 where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
All right. There's a lot of messages and a lot to be learned from these numbers and this data. It's good to see you, Harry. Thank you.
They closed the gap, and CNN has to report it. From a 23-point deficit in 1989 to dead even today, Trump has even rewritten the entire political map. HUD Secretary Scott Turner shows exactly how Trump's putting American families first. Over 236,000 new homeowners since January, with more than half being first-time buyers. Watch him explain how homeownership creates generational wealth and defines our national character. Watch.
America's long tradition of home ownership has empowered families since the founding of our great nation nearly 250 years ago. And today it continues to define our national character. Home ownership plays a critical role in the values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, eternal principles the founding fathers enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. A home has a price, but its true value is priceless. We understand this truth here at HUD. That's why this June we proudly celebrate the 24th annual National Homeownership Month. We know owning a home is priceless because a home is a place of sanctuary. It's a place of comfort, joy, and safety. It's also the foundation of generational wealth and legacy, a blessing passed from the parents to children and beyond. Under President Trump's leadership, we're firing on all cylinders to help more Americans achieve the dream of home ownership. Since January 20th, HUD has insured the mortgages of over 236,000 home buyers, more than half of which are first-time homeowners. And working with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, HUD has also helped more than 500,000 veterans become homeowners. Finally, right now, more than 7 million households live in homes financed by an FHA-insured mortgage. These are not just numbers. They represent real lives, millions of empowered Americans who have achieved the American dream and enjoy the self-sufficiency, joy, and independence that comes with it. So as we commemorate National Home Ownership Month, I promise you, HUD will continue to champion President Trump's vision of home ownership and expand the American dream to families across this great nation from sea to shining sea.
So think about that, right? It's National Home Ownership Month. Not that other month, right? Yeah, celebrate pride in home ownership. 7 million households living in FHA-backed homes, real Americans achieving real dreams under Trump's leadership. Trump himself delivered a masterclass in media manipulation when asked about Chinese students at Harvard. Watch him expose how Harvard refuses to provide lists of foreign students while taking hundreds of millions from China. The president's message is crystal clear. Watch.
What's your message to Chinese college students in the United States that want to stay in the United States, don't want their visa revoked?
Well, they're going to be okay. It's going to work out fine. We just want to check out the individual students. And that's true with all colleges. And I don't know why Harvard's not giving us the list. There's something going on because Harvard's not giving us a list. They ought to give us a list and get themselves out of trouble. But they don't want to give the list because they have names on there that supposedly are quite bad. We want people that can love our country and take care of our country and cherish our country. And for some reason, Harvard doesn't want to give us a list.
Harvard doesn't want to give the list because they have names on there that are quite bad. Trump knows exactly what's happening. Meanwhile, Democrats are in complete meltdown mode. Hakeem Jeffries went full hysteria, claiming people will literally die if the one big beautiful bill passes. Watch this unhinged rant that shows just how desperate Democrats have become.
This bill actually hurts everyday Americans in order to reward billionaires. It would strip away health care from approximately 14 million Americans. Premiums, co-pays, and deductibles for tens of millions more will go up. Actually, if it ever were to be implemented into law, hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and people will literally die.
You said people gonna die? Okay, Jar Jar. Everything he said is a complete lie. The bill actually protects health care for American citizens while cutting off illegals. Representative Jasmine Crockett pushed the same tired reverse Robin Hood narrative, claiming that Trump's stealing from the poor. Watch her dishonest spin get exposed. The bill stops illegals from stealing benefits meant for vulnerable Americans. Watch.
So the idea that you would go through and you would like gut critical things that literally people rely on to live. Also that say maybe somebody can go and buy yet another jet or another yacht. It just doesn't seem right because it isn't right. This is literally a reverse Robin Hood of literally stealing from those that need resources the most and giving it to those that are rich.
Yeah, so she could buy another wig. She thinks protecting American benefits from illegal alien theft is somehow stealing. That's Democrat logic at its finest. The steel industry, though, roaring back under Trump's tariffs. Brandon Ferris from the Steel Manufacturers Association reveals how tariffs have already driven $20 billion in American steel investment. And he's going to explain why 50% tariffs are exactly what domestic production needs. Watch.
As far as protecting the domestic steel industry, which is vital for economic security, energy security, national security, we believe that moving the tariffs up to 50% was a very good move.
$20 billion in growth and modernization. That's what happens when you protect American workers from Chinese dumping. Senate Leader John Thune laid out the brutal reality without Trump's bill. American families face a $2.6 trillion tax increase. Watch him spell out exactly what's at stake. Child tax credit cut in half, standard deduction slashed, average families hit with $1,700 more in taxes.
Family, obviously, you would see, if Congress doesn't act, a huge tax increase next year, about a $2.6 trillion tax increase. The child tax credit would go from $2,000 today back to $1,000. The standard deduction would, which now it would be cut in half. So you'd see a very direct impact. And in fact, depending on how many kids you have, it could be a very significant impact. But, the average family that makes $80,000 a year is going to see a $1,700 tax increase if Congress doesn't act.
An $80,000 family income means $1,700 more in taxes if Congress doesn't act. That is the Democrat plan for America. Now, a Maine small business owner perfectly captured why Trump's coalition includes working Americans. She started on her back porch, now employs 5 people, and could hire more with tax relief. Watch her explain what tax cuts mean for real job creators.
I'm a small business owner in Maine. I started my company on my back porch. Now I employ 5 people in my 10-room warehouse. With a tax cut, I can employ a lot more. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist. I develop tools to treat problems of the jaw. Small business owners pay a lot of money in taxes. It's another full-time job for me. If I got a tax cut, I could hire more people. I could pay their salaries. I could expand my business.
Join the fight and send a letter to your senators at taxcutsnow.com.
Taxcutsnow.com, right? 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck while small businesses drown in taxes, and Trump is fixing both problems. Stephen Miller also dove deep into the health revolution that's happening under RFK Jr.'s leadership. Watch him expose how government nutrition advice has been fake for generations, creating diseases of civilization that don't exist in the natural world. Take a look.
The reality is that what has been fake for generations now is the medical and nutrition advice that so much of this government has been giving our families. And, we saw, of course, during COVID with fake rules about from the so-called experts about masking and social distancing and everything else, or pretending that there's the same risk profile for a healthy 4-year-old kid as an elderly and obese person. The MAGA report is the most significant and important breakthrough moment in terms of prioritizing prevention, underlying health, answering and asking the right questions. Why are there such persistently high rates of pediatric cancer in this country? And why have they increased so significantly since 1970? Why are pediatric cancer rates so much higher in the developed world than the developing world? Why do you even have a concept called diseases of civilization? I think you've all heard that concept before, right? Where in the most developed countries, you have such high incidences of cancer, of immunological disorders, right? In other words, things like celiac disease, food allergies, eczema, psoriasis, gut disorders. You have so many quality of life disorders that can actually be crippling and debilitating, right? In other words, some of these disorders can completely degrade in the person's entire quality of life permanently with no known cures. They can treat these things with, like Crohn's disease, for example. They can treat these things with steroids. They can try to mitigate the symptoms, but there's no path out for millions of Americans. What is causing young babies in this country to have these crippling allergic reactions or immune systems that don't fire properly? They underreact to certain illnesses. They overreact to other illnesses. And we don't see these same things in the natural world and other primates. And so the report, which took just such extraordinary courage, and I'm so grateful to Bobby, in talking about the chemical load in our society, the chemical load that a child accrues from the day they're born, in terms of everything that they touch and interact with in the world, the complete denuding of our food supply, in other words, the eradication of all living things, all natural things from our food supply in the form of these ultra-processed foods, so that children are living a life where they're not having access to anything natural, they're not having access to anything that's healthy. Everything they do have is loaded up with insane amounts of sugar. For years, I still think it's the case. If you went to a store and you looked at baby food, it's filled with sugar. Why are people putting sugar into baby food? And how many children's snacks, right, are filled with dyes, artificial ingredients, and massive amounts of sugar? What is this doing to a young body from the day they're born? Combined again with all the chemical exposures, the incredibly accelerated growth and compression of the overall vaccine schedule from even when I was a kid. Parents have questions. They want to know, again, why do their kids have these chronic health conditions? Why do they go to the hospital when they're sick? Instead of just, in other words, they have like a common cold. Why is it sending them to the hospital? Why is their immune system firing wrong? Why is it that that foods that people have eaten for thousands of years are suddenly causing these crippling allergies in children? Why is it these high and persistent rates of obesity that is no precedent in history amongst our young people? What are the effects and the cost to our healthcare system over time when you have these high rates of chronic illnesses, heart disease, obesity, lung disease, asthma? Like, what are the effects of these on a society, both financially, personally, quality of life? Why is it that a person from the developing world has a lower cancer rate than an American does? I mean, on average, right? But within a single generation, their family has the exact same cancer rate, likelihood of getting cancer, as the American population. These are questions that no one has wanted to ask or explore or assess, and thank God that Bobby is doing so.
Thank God he is. It's a great question. Why do American kids have cancer rates that don't exist in developing nations? Miller and RFK are asking questions nobody wanted answers. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is right now. This isn't just political realignment. It's the complete demolition of everything that failed conservatism for decades. Trump hasn't captured the Republican Party. He has rebuilt it from the ground up. Working families, small businesses, steel workers, homeowners, they are all Trump Republicans now because he delivers results, not rhetoric. The establishment thought they could outlast him, undermine him, assassinate him, return to their comfortable corruption. Instead, they're watching their entire worldview get incinerated. Democrats losing their monopoly on the middle class after 40 years, that's not a fluke. That is the new reality. Every poll, every policy victory, every transformed life proves the same thing. The old political rules are dead. Trump killed them. The MAGA movement isn't the future of the Republican Party. It is the Republican Party. So here's my question. Is there any establishment Republican left worth saving? Any rhinos out there? Can they be saved? Simply yes or no. Sound off below. And Patriots, you want to gear up, support the Next News Network, go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com and check out our gear.